Uncharted has always been one of my all-time favorite video game franchises, giving us a likable and funny protagonist along with a unique cast of interesting supporting characters, and immersive storylines packed with cinematic action scenes that still hold up to this day. I dare to say that the action sequences on the Uncharted games are as good as those in the Indiana Jones trilogy. Yes, I said trilogy, there's only 3 movies. Don't say freaking anything. Every time you finish one of the Uncharted games, it gives you a great sense of adventure and satisfaction, and I remember saying this to myself after finishing the 3rd Uncharted game, that it's so cinematic, it's narratively driven, great characters, like it has all the elements to be perfectly adapted into a live-action movie. Or so I thought. The idea of an Uncharted movie has been in the air since 2007, the same year when the first Uncharted game came out. After its huge success, fans almost immediately began calling for a movie adaptation, and in 2008 those calls were answered. However, it wasn't really until 2020, 4 years after the launch of Uncharted 4, that the Uncharted movie officially went into production. My initial reaction during that time was one of excitement, like everyone else. We will finally be able to see our beloved characters with all the great things that made the game so great in live action. That is, until they announced that Tom Holland would be playing Nathan Drake and Mark Wahlberg would be playing Victor Sullivan. Don't get me wrong, I like Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, but casting them as Nathan Drake and Victor Sullivan was, in my opinion, a bad move from the producers. But I'll get into that later. The Uncharted movie takes some narrative liberties from the 3rd and 4th game, because we see a young Nathan Drake on his first adventure with Victor Sullivan. Everyone was excited for the movie, the theaters were packed, yet the overall critical response was... Instead of being immersed into the thrilling action, adventure, and charm of the characters as they were in the games, most people, me included, felt bored and apathetic. Again, the video game series is full of adventure, old relics, ancient lost cities, and frenetic action levels that seem perfectly made for the big screen. And the movie managed to deliver all of this on a surface level. The Uncharted movie pretty much took all the spectacular iconic moments of the original video games and jumped them into a 2-hour film. The thing is that with the movie, it all felt sterile, flavorless, and uninteresting. This is because the movie ignored the most important thing that made the game so outstanding: its characters. The relationship between Nathan and Sully is a central piece of the Uncharted series. They're partners in crime, but they also share a father-son dynamic, with Sully being a father figure and mentor to Nate. They love each other. Seeing these two constantly bantering, making fun of each other always cracks me up. They see something of themselves in the other. However, the Uncharted movie took all of this and threw it all away, instead of introducing them and building their relationship in the way it deserves. The scene of Nate and Sully's first meeting is one of the most uninspiring things I've ever seen. And what a better way to illustrate this than by taking a look at Nate and Sully's first meeting in both the Uncharted movie and the flashback from the 3rd game. In the movie, after Nate steals a bracelet from a customer, the movie introduces us to Victor Sullivan praising Nate on his pickpocketing abilities and immediately offers him a job, and then leaves, not before pickpocketing the stolen bracelet and leaving his business card in its place. The whole scene is boring and stiff, and there's no quippy banter, and you don't feel any type of chemistry between them. There's no event or shared experience that has brought these two together in a way that we could care about. The scene feels like it was done at the last minute and called it a day. Now, compare that to how Nate and Sully meet in the game. After a failed attempt to steal an object in a museum, Nate sees Sully secretly unlocking the case and walking away. But before Nate could do anything, he's kicked out by security for sneaking in. He later follows Sully and steals his wallet. Confidently believing he got away with it, Nate starts running, but Sully catches him right away. The two have a non-friendly conversation and they go their separate ways, having found an equal. The scene is just great. It has dynamic camera movement, and you can tell that both Nate and Sully have a respect for each other's skills.
It was a nice lift back there. You're pretty good. The technique is really sloppy, though. You're telegraphing all your moves.
Damn! I'm sorry.
Their personalities are highlighted in the scene, making it one of the many moments in the games where you understand the ins and outs of their bond. Much later, Nate gets to steal the object, tries to run away from the bad guys, Sully saves his life, and once they are safe in a bar, they get to know each other a little better and their circumstances, and the rest is history. This just puts a smile on my face. We get a shared experience, and they have such chemistry that we immediately connect to these characters and care about them. While in the movie, they kinda just meet and agree to do this heist thing, and even during the heist sequence, they barely do anything together. Nate is hanging on a lamp while Sully is doing his own thing. Not exactly a bonding experience. The same problem occurs with the introduction of Chloe Fraser. She literally just enters the scene to talk, and nothing remarkable happens here to introduce Chloe and her relation with Nate in a meaningful way. She just steals the MacGuffin from Nate's bag, and there's this fun little chase which was really bland. Then she's like, okay, let's work together, kumbaya. But this doesn't do anything for me to get invested. A good example of how it should have been done is with Luffy, Nami, and Zoro in the first episode of the One Piece live action. These are three strangers dealing with circumstances that force them to work together in a meaningful enough way. Maybe if the movie had done that, there would be enough reason for us to care about their journey. So please, don't just put two characters together, say hi, and throw in some exposition and expect us to care about them. Make something happen to bring these characters together. And if you have issues with the characters' relationships, then brace yourself because the Uncharted movie has another huge problem: the action itself. One of the main features of the Uncharted games is the cinematic action, and to fumble such an important aspect in the live action is a slap in the face for all the fans. Instead of coming up with original action scenes, most of the sequences in the movie are a Walmart version of what the games have perfectly done. For instance, the movie starts with Nate as a kid breaking into a museum with his older brother Sam, which is the opening of the fourth game where you had to sneak out of the orphanage while avoiding being detected by nuns and jumping on roofs with Sam. Except that in the movie, all that jumping and sneaky stuff has been cut, leaving us with only the exposition. So we have the same sequence which was made to build the backstory of Nate and Sam and to introduce us to their fascination for history, except that it is an inferior version of what we already had in the game. The auction heist sequence is not much better either. Nate and Sully have to steal a cross needed to find the treasure. Also, this sequence is taken from the fourth game. The thing is that in the game, the characters had to actually infiltrate the auction, pickpocket keycards to access restricted areas, avoid being detected, fight the main underling boss, and fight their way out at the end. While in the movie, well, Nate just walks into the showroom, gets very easily into the control room, hangs on a lamp while Sully takes the cross on a silver platter and simply walk out through the main entrance.
Here's the other thing. See you.
How can you take such an exciting heist sequence from the game and make it this bland? The chase between Nate and Chloe in a local cultural environment, which was supposed to be fun, but is anything but fun, was of course better than in the third game, whose scene takes inspiration from, where we chased the bad guy and it was more intense and more interactive with the environment. Tomb exploration is a big part of the identity of the Uncharted games, where we, as players, have to parkour our way in, solving puzzles and surviving booby traps. Except that here, there are no puzzles, no parkour, or anything like that. All they did was turn a key and not get drowned until Sully turns the other key, which is inside a Papa John's. Yeah, product placement is very subtle in this movie. The plane sequence, which is totally taken from Uncharted 3, serves as the money shot for the film. It's visually cool and exciting, but not as well executed as the game, where we had to blast everyone who stood in our way to get to the plane and fight much harder to stay on the plane for dear life. And if that was already a bad situation, now you have to survive in the middle of the Rubal Khali desert. In the movie, we are already inside the plane, we're on the crates shortly after the fight starts, we free fall, and then we're already at the shores of a holiday resort. My overall problem with the action sequences is that not only fails to capture the essence of the original games and come up with original ideas, is that, narratively speaking, they feel easy and unearned. Combine that with how poorly handled the main characters' relationships are, and you get a boring and uninteresting movie. And since the movie just made an inferior version from what we got already from the games, I'd rather go to YouTube and watch the superior cutscenes from the games. The only action sequence that felt somewhat original is the third act. Nate and Sully find the lost ships with the treasure, and the bad guys show up to airlift them out. The scene takes inspiration from the first and fourth games, and this might sound nitpicky, but the fact that two huge old wooden ships full of gold, which might have tons of weight, get lifted by helicopters and collide mid-air is too unrealistic even for Uncharted. So that sequence really took me out of the movie. But anyways, we get an original action sequence with Nate and Sully fighting mercenaries on a flying ship against all odds. This brief moment actually got me a tiny bit excited, with Nate finally getting his iconic holster with the Uncharted theme sounding in the background. For a few seconds, I could say, holy shit! This is more like Uncharted. Sully hijacking the helicopter and sacrificing the gold to save Nate is a movie original. Wait, sacrificing gold to save the young main protagonist? Where have I seen this before?
Lost me for a fool!
I fucking knew it. But what mainly put me off was that during the whole time I was watching the film, I didn't feel like I was watching Nathan Drake. What I was seeing is Peter Parker trying to be a treasure hunter. Yes, he doesn't have any physical resemblance to Nathan Drake, same thing with Mark Wahlberg as Sully, but if we look at the Last of Us adaptation, as long as you get correctly what made these characters who they are, then that should be good enough. Except that it wasn't the case here. If we look at how the MCU Spider-Man moves in action scenes, the way Tom Holland moves are smooth, agile. His background as a gymnast and dancer helped in his performance as a Spider-Man, whose character moves very elegantly, precise, like an Olympic athlete. Nathan Drake doesn't move like that. His style of fighting is that of someone in a bar fight, throwing punches, dirty. The way Nate moves are unpolished. Everything he touches goes down the second he steps on it. Tom Holland's movements in Uncharted are perfect, accurate, like he knows what he's doing the entire time, instead of the YOLO attitude we all know from Nate in the games. What really solidified this was the scene when Nate goes smashing bottles and glasses into the henchmen's faces with absolute perfection before doing a gymnastic dive through a hole he barely fits in a split second. This issue has to do more with how Tom Holland was directed and not him as an actor. He's giving a performance similar to what he was doing as Peter Parker, the introverted teenager with extraordinary powers, as he did in his 3 Spider-Man films, with the difference that with Nate, they were trying to make him look more mature by making him a bartender, drink alcohol, have race, and steal stuff. He's pretty much Peter Parker going to college. Tom Holland's performance as Nathan Drake could have been much better, but that's not what the producers were looking for. He was mainly cast because he's an A-list actor who played Spider-Man in one of the most profitable movie franchises. Again, we are not seeing Nathan Drake being brought to life. We're seeing Peter Parker in a world where he played too much Tomb Raider and became a treasure hunter instead of Spider-Man. Nathan Drake is the main character and the heart of Uncharted, and he's nowhere to be found. You know who else is nowhere to be found? The man Victor Sullivan. Out of all the actors who could have played Sully, Mark Wahlberg is the last one you can think of. Not only he doesn't have any physical resemblance in the slightest to Sully, but the man isn't even trying to act like Sully. Most surely, he's being told not to. And Sully's characteristic mustache only appears in the post-credit scene, which doesn't make sense to me. The mustache is not something that he gets over the course of the games. It's not like suddenly you get a mustache and you're already Sully like they did in the movie. It's not like it needs an origin story. What really makes Victor Sullivan is not really the mustache, but his personality and his relation with Nate, and they totally dismissed it. Sully's supposed to be the mentor and father figure to Nate, and that was established in the third game when he saves Nate from these goons with whom he previously collaborated and later takes Nate under his wing to teach him the ropes. He's willing to take anyone out in order to protect Nate, and he didn't even hesitate to take care of him from day one. A father-son relationship. All of that is totally absent in the movie. They have an antagonistic relationship throughout the whole thing. Yes, in the original games, they banter and throw quips at each other, but there's always this paternal familiar aspect to it, an aspect missing in this movie. Also, the old man veteran who has seen everything and that is tired of doing this shit vibe that is part of Sully's personality is not felt in Wahlberg's performance. I didn't see any generational gap between Nate and Sully. Instead of capturing the age difference appropriately, the movie made it look like they are not that far apart in age, which translates to the already mentioned lack of the paternal aspect of the relationship. The Uncharted live-action movie could have been a lot better, starting with coming up with a fully original story that could fit the Uncharted universe. If you really want to see a good Uncharted live action, I suggest you to watch this short film with Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake, where they nailed absolutely everything on how Uncharted should be adapted. This video game franchise is perfect for making loads of movies out of. Adventures, trips to exotic places, fun and exciting action in the style of the Indiana Jones movies. The movie could have gotten away with it if they had at least captured the spirit of the characters and been fun enough to lead to much better character development and story in future sequels. Instead, we got a collage of every iconic scene in the game made bland with forgettable character interactions, resulting in a crash grab of a movie. A movie devoid of any personality, and the worst thing you can say about a film is that it's boring, and that's sadly what this Uncharted movie is. In conclusion, just watch the cutscenes from the games on YouTube.